So, welcome, Mobeen, and thank you so much for being part of our British Ship Society series, Take a Break. Now, you took time out to travel across the world in the BAFTA winning series, Race Across the World.
Yeah.
So, tell us, what were the dominoes, as it were, that fell into place that enabled you to do that and kind of motivated you to do that in the first place?
Yeah, it was around Christmas time, a dark winter in December. And I think I was in ST4 at the time, and we'd just come out the second lockdown and we were trying to get back to normal, really. And I think having been through that period of working in my early registrar career and seeing how it affected other people, there was this opportunity that came about to go on the show. I didn't take it seriously initially because it was just through an email, do you want to apply for the show? So just out of boredom, really, I thought, let's do it. And I put myself and Zenab through, my wife. And then, we had our initial interview, which was just over the phone. And then, they slowly progressed through face-to-face. And then they started telling us, there's a chance you've got to go on the show. So it all stemmed from around that time, post-COVID, not having the most opportunities and, not having the best opportunities during training, thinking that, this has not been a great start. So that was really the start of it.
Thanks, Mobeen. So for the people who haven't seen the series, can you tell us about it?
Yeah, so it was season 3 of Race Across the World. And in my series, I had to get from Vancouver to St. John's, which is going from the most westerly point in Canada to the most easterly point via checkpoints. We had a limited budget, and the budget is set by the cost of a flight ticket from Vancouver to St. John's on the day of departure for 2 people. So our total budget came to around 5,000 UK pounds sterling, 8,000 Canadian dollars, which at the time we thought was a lot of money, but we realized very quickly that Canada's not cheap to live in or eat in. And then we weren't allowed to use our phones or any smart devices. We had to ask people for help, guidance and information.
And you did some work along the way as well, didn't you, Mobeen?
Absolutely, yeah. And then we had opportunities to work to top up our pockets, which was definitely needed.
And one of your tactics for you and Zenab was to just elaborate on what your tactic was.
So we figured out quite quickly it was just as good to allow people to stay in their homes and feed us, because the cost of accommodation and food was so much. It wasn't that we figured it out. Early on, some people offered it to us, and we were like, this is a good tactic. So this is working really well because we're not spending any money and we're progressing. When we were looking for the jobs, there'd be a lot of work for us for bed and board. We found that type of job was better than earning a certain hourly rate because you'd get way more out of it. We would look for those kind of opportunities, and people liked it because they didn't have to pay us anything. So it worked both ways. It's mutual.
So Mobeen, I'm a huge fan of the show. I watched the first 2 series intrepidly, and obviously you were in the 3rd series.
That's right.
Where you travelled from Vancouver to St. John's.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 6 weeks, isn't it?
8 weeks.
8 weeks. Wow. Yeah. Wow. So, I struggled to take 2 weeks off work. So how did you go about the logistics of trying to potentially take that much time off work?
Yeah. The first person I spoke to was my assigned educational supervisor, who's Naomi Davies, who's a consultant at the Royal Manchester Children's Hospital. And I genuinely thought she would tell me to just be quiet, crack on with training, don't be silly.
Now I know Naomi. I'm sure she didn't use that language.
No. Well, that's how I thought that's what she'd tell me. That's what I would have told myself. But she was amazing. She told me, right, if you're being serious about this, I will support you. And then she said, right, let's think of a plan to get this thing through. So I was due to rotate in February to my next placement to a hospital I'd never worked in, which was the Royal Bolton Hospital. And my clinical supervisor, was Mr. Phil Wykes, who I'd never met. So she said, right, the person you've got to convince is him, and obviously your TPD. So first of all, have a chat with them two. So I spoke to Mr. Mehta, who was my training program director at the time. And again, I thought he was just going to tell me, to stop being silly. You've got training.
And I know Mr. Meta well, and I'm very surprised that he didn't use language like that.
His was a bit more X-rated, I can't. But actually, again, very supportive, and he wanted me to give him the pros and cons, and I'd actually prepared 5 slides before I went to speak to him. So I think I've shown a bit of initiative by preparing why I want to do this. So I'd taken a bit of time.
So Mobeen, tell us the pros and cons. Tell us how you managed to persuade your TPD.
Oh gosh, I think I can't remember exactly, but there were the pros were, something along the lines of, it's an opportunity to take time out, spend some time with my other half, who's also a doctor. It's something that I've always wanted to do. I was a big fan of the show, like yourself, in seasons 1 and watching seasons 1 and 2. And in terms of the cons, it was just going through. My training's going to be put back. I thought a negative would be, how would it look on the program, or how would it look on me as a trainee? Basically, I thought taking time out to go have some fun. I always just say, it feels like I'm going on a jolly here, and they've approved this. So what's going on? But
believe me, having watched it, it didn't look like a jolly to me. It looked very cold to me. So before we move on to the actual trip that you did, Mobeen, Zeinab, obviously your wife, she's a psychiatrist now, and she's a consultant psychiatrist now.
Right,
how did she persuade her psychiatry deanery to let her do that?
Quite honestly, we just signed all the forms. There's not that many actually, and I think we both basically said to our program directors, I think their school is allowing it, and vice versa.
Oh, you play them off. That old trick.
But no one ever gave us a negative response. It was just like, oh yeah, my wife's applying and it seems to be progressing. There was no lies told. It was just that I think no one really. Well, I just never got the impression that anyone had a problem with it, quite honestly. Everyone actually encouraged it. So, like I say, Mr. Meta encouraged it. I went and spoke to Mr. Wykes, who was a massive fan of the show. And in fact, I had Mr. Wykes, had Miss Davies telling me, go for it, we'll support you. So when you've got people that support you in a career decision, it's easy. It's not hard. You just got to do all the admin paperwork.
So sort of coming on to the experience itself, I mean, what a wild adventure it was for anyone that's watched the series. I'm interested to know, was it liberating to not have the technology there, the rigmaroles of your day-to-day life, or was it actually not as liberating as you thought it was going to be?
It was 100%, as you said. Honestly, I wish I could now use my phone less. We were without our phones for the whole 2 months. We had no contact with family. We weren't allowed to speak to family.
So, Mobeen, just for people who don't watch the haven't watched the shows, first of all, they need to watch the show.
Yeah, of course.
Available on iPlayer.
Yeah.
Just describe the process. So you turn up. Do you know where you're going to start with? Do you have any idea where in the world you're flying to?
Nope. So they book us a hotel at London Heathrow. You have no idea where you're going. The morning of the flight, the producers come in. They strip your bags, make sure you've not got any contraband, which is essentially food, hidden electrical devices, phones, and any money. And they literally went through my bag of boxes as well. That's how thorough they are. And then once they're satisfied that you've got nothing on you, they tell you where you're going. So we only knew then at that point we were going to Vancouver.
So you knew you were going to Vancouver.
That's it. No, but we didn't know. Are we going south into America? Are we going to go up through Alaska? No idea what the route is.
So you got on a direct flight from London Heathrow to Vancouver. And then describe the process when you arrived in Vancouver.
Yeah, we got into Vancouver. They put us up in a fairly nice hotel, and they keep you in that room. And then if you're to have dinner, it had to be chaperoned with one of the runners. So even going into the city, we weren't allowed to go on our own just before the race started, so that we didn't get any advantages. So that was a start, and actually the realization that, wow, we are literally going to be watched 24/7.
And then the handover that Naomi alludes to. So you literally have to hand over your mobile device, any credit cards you have.
That's right.
You are zero.
No card, no phone, no contact with our normal life. It was bizarre, but very liberating. It took a few days to get used to. But really good. I remember in the first few days, my foot felt like I was getting phantom vibrations, and my hand would naturally just go to my pocket. we are programmed now 100% to expect to do that. And if you to count the amount of times you pick up your phone in a day, it's quite shocking. Even if you don't use it, your hand will be there, and that's what I was feeling.
How was it to be monitored so much?
Yeah, well,
the experience.
It was something that I didn't expect. No one tells you about it, and it's hard, to be honest, because there are times when you just want to have a conversation out of what you're doing with your other half, because it is your wife. So, for example, if there was a family matter that you just knew you didn't want to be asked about later on, we just wanted to avoid it, because whatever you say is fair game. They might use it later on, but it was okay. We got used to it. There were techniques that we figured out how to avoid them asking.
I mean, obviously, Mobeen, you went with your wife, Zeneb, but there were. This was a competition, wasn't it? Yeah. So there were, is it 5 couples?
That's right.
5 pairings?
Yeah.
They're not all husband-wife, are they?
No, we were one of 5. So there were 2 father and daughter pairs. There was a pair of best friends, and there were 2 brothers. So that's 5, yeah. We were all different. We were the only couple in our 30s.
And what would you say was the best experience that you had in those 2 months away?
You know what? We were lucky because it was all paid for, and we got to do some amazing things. I mean, I'm not a skier, but I got to go on Whistler. And now if you speak to avid skiers, that's one of their bucket list places to go and ski. And I've just gone and done it for nothing. One-on-one lesson with a ski instructor, which was amazing. And he got me down a green slope on my own, which was amazing. And then that was episode 1. So I was like, oh, this is great. This is the first leg. And then in the second leg, got to go fly over Kluane National Park, and I'd never been on a light aircraft before, and I love flying. That's probably my thing. If I wasn't a doctor, I'd probably be a pilot. Oh, I'd love to have been. So I was just ecstatic being on that plane, going over and getting to see the tallest mountain in Canada. So that's week 2, and it just kept happening week after week, that I was just having moments that I thought I would never have been doing this if I hadn't, done this. Number 1, probably can't afford it. Number 2, wouldn't have the time to do it. So it just kept happening, and the whole experience was amazing.
Do you still keep in touch with the other 4 couples?
Yeah, we've got a WhatsApp group, and there's a WhatsApp group of all the season's contenders. So it's a good group. It's a bit cathartic because there's obviously mainly positive experiences, but there's also some negative, and only people that have done it will understand those. And I've probably alluded to some about, being able to have some time to speak privately and what goes on behind the scenes. But we got to keep in touch, and we try and maintain that relationship, because it was unique. Yeah. They're the only 8 other people that have done what you've done.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, there were some really deep emotions that came out in the series. For example, you met Brett, I think, on the very last series, who took you the last leg to the end, who was adopted. And
that's right.
You and Zeneb had a really emotional time. How was that for you, and on reflection now?
Yeah, it was honestly, that moment in itself made us feel satisfied with the outcome. Like, for those that haven't watched it, I'm probably going to spoil it here, but we didn't win, but where we finished was fine because of meeting him at the end, and obviously everything that preceded it. And that story in itself of adoption, we'd actually we've been through the process and been very, very, very close to completing and adopting ourselves. And maybe this alludes back to one of the questions, why did I do it earlier? At that time when I was ST4, we'd just taken a break from the adoption process. I'd started it when I was in ST3. So yeah, it seems a bit of quite a time away now, but it just felt like we were meant to be there in that moment with that man. And I think if you've watched it, I'm not normally one to lose my emotions, or I think I'm a pretty strong with him, but he made me cry on TV, and it's quite. I felt embarrassed, but it is what it is. It was true emotion. That.
I mean, one of the things I found quite enlightening about it all was your open discussions about your issues about infertility.
Yeah.
Did it help you that process?
Yeah, it was never planned, and
I got that feeling that it sort of just happened, didn't it? Did you feel uncomfortable talking about it?
Of course. I'm quite a private guy. It's probably hard to believe having gone on the show, but I genuinely thought we wouldn't go into that part of our lives because it just never came up. It didn't seem
to very personal, isn't it?
Yeah, and it didn't, even in the pre-interviews, and we did a lot of that, a lot of personal interviews prior to going on the show. I don't really remember them digging into it. And actually, the first 4 weeks we were going through the show, and me and Zena were almost like thinking, we must be quite boring. Because we've just been having a bit of a laugh going skiing and then the second half of the race. And I think it's designed that way. You have to get tired. You have to break you down emotionally and make you feel vulnerable at times. And it did. And then we met people that just naturally just had those conversations. And it is that having a conversation with someone when you're tired or being able to just talk to them about your issues. And once you do that, people will have their own stories that are always familiar. I'm sure I'm talking about it now. Everyone in this room probably knows someone that's gone through something similar, but doesn't really talk about it, or we don't explore the conversation as much. That's what I've learned. It's an issue, but I share that with a lot of people, and you only know that if you speak about it. Yeah.
And the people that you encounter, a lot of them, you talk quite a lot about the kindness of the people. Is that something that you've kind of taken back now, having reflected on that experience?
Yeah, 100%. Canadians are honestly one of the nicest bunch of people I've ever met. They're so open. And it's not just down to being from a certain country, but they were amazing. And they were very open. Their culture is that way to help you out because their country is so big and vast. They don't have transport systems surprisingly like we do. We don't have they don't have trams, out with the bigger cities, and they travel long distances and help each other out. It's just a given. And it was surprising. We'd ask people, oh, can we go so far? We're looking to get here. Can you tell us where to go? And rather than telling us where to go, it'll be, yeah, sure, I'll take you there, no problem. Actually, I know someone that's going that way tomorrow. Or, you know what, I'll ask around. And lo and behold, someone would come out and, yeah, let's take you. And they were just so keen to help you out. I've not, since having finished it, I've not felt that again. And obviously being in our country, it's a lot smaller and we have established transport, but a really nice thing to experience. And if did it change me? Yeah, I've not given someone a lift yet. I've not had to. I've not seen a hitchhiker. But I would. I think, but even having been back, you do fall back into your ways. I think, oh, is that safe or not? But I have to.
So in terms of the logistics of it, Mobeen, it was 8 weeks.
Yeah.
So you took it as unpaid leave or study leave or?
So I took it as out of program career break, which is unpaid leave. And it has to be signed off by your training program director. And I think that's the only person that literally has to sign the form. But it does have to be supported by your educational supervisor as well. Yeah. 2 months unpaid leave. That was it.
And did it looked exhausting to me when I was watching it. Did you need a holiday when you got back?
Yes. And in hindsight, I should have taken a week off at least, but I felt already guilty taking so much time off. So I thought that I should go straight back. So I remember flying back in on a Sunday morning from Canada into Heathrow. The studio paid for us to be driven back up home. And I just remember I was back in on Tuesday. And again, I have to thank Mr. White because I remember him texting me and I texted him on back and he said, listen, just come back when you're feeling ready. No problem. I've got someone they had a locum for the week, I think. And again, it's probably a lesson to learn. When you need time off, just take it. And especially when your seniors are advising you to do it, just take it, because it took me a month to recalibrate. I remember going through that summer at the end, I can't remember it if I'm being honest. I just remembering it being really hot. And all I remember is going to the hospital and getting back in the car. I can't remember in between, but I was really tired. But we took a week off, probably as soon as I got my leave allowance in after changeover, and then recuperated.
Did Zenab find it difficult getting back into work?
Yeah, and I can't remember exactly if she took time off. She's good. She's better at me at doing that. I remember. I think she did take time off, and she took a week off. If I'm being honest, I can't remember exactly. But I just know that she's better at it than me, and she listens to herself more than I do. I think I've got the typical, I don't want to let people down. I just want to get back into the clinic. You feel that natural guilt of not being there for, you know how it is. We all know how it is. You know, if you don't want your boss to be on his own in a massive clinic when you can be there. Sitting at home doesn't feel natural.
Do you think the whole process changed you as a person?
Yeah, 100%. I've realised, and I think being on it, that you have to take time for yourself. You have to listen to yourself. And I think back in when I was in ST4, I hadn't had a break, I don't think, properly since, I can't remember. I just remember going through, this is going back since the age of 10, 11, GCSEs, A-levels. I did have a gap year, but it was always obviously focused to get into uni. Then you do uni, house jobs. I'm talking to people that know this, but if you look back, you don't take a break and it's full on for a very long time. And then as orthopods, we're all pretty similar in that we set a goal, we go to achieve it, and then it's not enough. We go again and we go again and we go again. And I think once I got my ST3 number, it was such a big thing to get it, and I finally got it. And then COVID happened, which was, that feels like a blur. And then obviously we're going through things, we're all going through personal things at home. You don't take time off. And I think people end up in certain bad places later on down the line. It may not be in their training, it may be in their consultant life or whatever. It's probably because they've not looked after themselves physically, mentally. So I've realized that that's very, very important. And I'm very self-aware now of what my limits are, and I'll take them. I'll take my breaks when I need them, and I encourage everyone else as well to do it. A bit of self-reflection goes a long way.
So that sort of leads me on to my next question. You're an ST7. Yeah. You're coming towards the end of your training.
Yeah.
And you'll step into consultant practice.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking to a number of other people at different stages of their career who've taken a break. Do you think you will actively program in time out to take a break in the future?
Yeah, I think we need to have a conversation about how we plan our careers going forward because of what we do. It's a full-on job. I feel sorry. I know I'm talking to people that are ahead of me, but I think we need to figure out how to maintain our workforce and keep them going. We go to inductions and they talk about as surgeons, we're like professional athletes. But professional athletes get looked after physically and mentally. They have a team around them. Now, if we reflect, do we do that for ourselves? I don't think we do at all. I think we just keep on going and going and going. So, I know you're going to talk to guests who have taken time out. I think we need to normalize things like taking a period of a few months off rather than a couple of weeks or 30 days of annual leave, so that when you come back, you're refreshed and you're good to go again. I think we need to build this into our planning. And as departments, I think going forward, I'd be wanting to go to somewhere where someone or a department has no problem with me doing that. And I'd encourage other people in that department to do that as well. We need to build this culture where taking 6 months off is normal, to go do something else, because I think you'll get more out of that surgeon, in the long term. It's like investing in the future of that person.
So have you reapplied for next year's season?
I wouldn't do that exactly. But, on a serious note, I am in full-time training, but I'm always thinking, I want to do something different all the time. I'm always looking, quite honestly, for another opportunity. And that could be anything. There's people that are athletes in their own self. They like to do triathlons or traveling. My traveling's changed. I don't travel by air as much. After race across the world, I went from Manchester to Istanbul on the trains over a week, and for whatever, there was a reason why we cut it short. Basically, to get back for the FA Cup final, we cut a 7-day trip.
Of course, you're a Man United fan,
that's right.
Mobeen.
And then, so I've done that, and then in December just gone, I drove back with my parents from, is essentially on the border of Turkey and Iran, over 12 days. So I would never have done that, and I don't think my parents would have done it either. So I don't think they've said it, but I think I inspired them to do that trip, and I shared it with them. So it changes the way you think of doing things. So I don't know what the next trip is. If you've got any ideas, I'll do it.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much, Mobeen, for sharing all of your experiences.
Thank you very much.
It's okay.
And if anybody hasn't watched the series, then we definitely encourage them to do so. Thanks
Thank
again.
you. Thanks for having me.
Done.
Thank you.
Cheers.